Howard Eber, and I am an alcoholic. I want to welcome everybody to week number 48 of this cycle of The Big Book Comes Alive. We are deep, deep into action. We have been talking for the last few weeks about amends, about different types of amends, of what amends mean, or what they don't mean, of what we should say and what we shouldn't say, and all those fun things about making amends. And we're going to move a little bit beyond that at this point. We're on page uh, 83. And we're going to do this a little bit differently. Um, um, we're going to go through what many of you regard as the promises, the ninth step promises, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we're going to go through this paragraph several times. Um, I don't think we're going to get too much further than this paragraph today. I hope we don't, but there's a lot I want to cover here. So let's get started. We're on page 83 at the bottom of the page. And as we've mentioned many times, uh, this is a textbook. There are three types of literature. There's fiction, which is acts of right about fantasy, science fiction, etc. Game of Thrones, Star Wars, any of that, Michigas. Then there's nonfiction, which is history, biographies, news-related things. And then there's textbooks. Textbooks teach us something. Whatever the topic is, that's what they teach us. And this is a textbook that teaches us how to change. So, as it is with any good textbook, it assumes that we do the work as we are proceeding, that as we go to each page, it assumes that we've done the work on the previous page. So that by the time we get to this page on page 83, these things at the bottom of the page have quite a different meaning than they do when you just pick them out of the book and read them at the beginning of the meeting. Um, to me, these aren't promises so much as they are, um, I don't know, they're predictions. They are observations. What is life like? By the time we've gotten to page 82 in this book, we've done everything that the book says to do up until this point, and our life has changed radically. It has changed. And I think that in order to get a real grasp on how much it's changed, we need a starting point. We need I think the term is a control, so we can start to compare one point to the other. And the point, oops, I mean, there we go. Sorry about that. Um, so the point that I'm going to pick as a control point is page 53. So if you would, let's go to page 53. I said 53. I meant actually 51. Yep. On the top of page 51, Bill makes a statement. He says, leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. So where are we in the process here on page 51? We have gone through the first two steps basically, and we're about to commit to a program of action in the third step and take those steps of action. But we are done talking about alcohol. Has our life gotten any better? I don't know about anyone else, but I thought all I had to do was to stop drinking and drugging, and everything would just automatically fall into line. Well, it's not that simple. Why living is so unsatisfactory is because I don't have an alcohol problem. And now that I've eliminated alcohol from my life, I can really see that I don't have an alcohol problem. What I have is a sobriety problem. That as I look at my life, at the point of the second step, about to take the third step, I'm noticing something about my life that I'm not comfortable with, and it gives me an impetus, that gives me a reason to want to change. So let's take a look at what some of those things are. We're on page 52 now, right in the middle. The paragraph begins, we had to ask, and I'm going to suggest if you haven't already done so, please highlight that whole paragraph um, in yellow, really, because it's just a general highlighting. And on the left side of the paragraph, please write the bedevilments. Bedevilments, the bedevilments. On the right side, on the right margin, I'm going to suggest you write symptoms of a spiritual malady. We know we have a three-part disease made up of a physical allergy, a mental obsession, and a spiritual malady. And while we've been talking a lot about what is this physical allergy, well, it's the abnormal reaction that we have to the ingestion of these chemicals that normal drinkers or druggers just don't have. Everyone gets to a point where they'll say, nope, no more. I got to drive, or I'm going to get sick, or they say silly things like, I'm right where I want to be. I don't need any more. Well, I've never been able to utter those things. It's like a foreign language to me. I always drank and drugged with the expectation of arriving just a little bit more, just one or two more drinks, just one or two more. That the promised land, as Bruce calls it, is always just a few drinks or a few lines or a few hits down the road. So we know about that physical allergy. And we know about the mental obsession that causes us to give in to the thought to drink, that this time it'll be different. This time I'll be able to handle it. That despite all our history, that at some point that gives way to the old thread-worn idea that this time it'll be better. And that's the mental obsession. But we haven't spent an enormous amount of time on the spiritual malady. We talked about it in the doctor's opinion. I'll see you later, sweetie. We talked about it in the doctor's opinion, where Dr. Silkworth said we are restless, we are irritable, we are discontented. But what else? What else? Because I don't know about you, but that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface for me. Um, I was a raw nerve. Everything hurt. I was super critical of everything, enormously sarcastic, highly judgmental. I was not a pleasant person to be around, and I wasn't a pleasant person for myself either. So this, what we're about to read now, gives a really good idea, a really good picture of what does it look like to have this spiritual malady. What are these symptoms like? We know about the symptom of the allergy, the craving. We know about the symptom of the obsession, the obsession. And now we're going to get a real good look at the symptoms of this spiritual malady. We had to ask ourselves, and of course, had to is a must, why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. Not that important. Here's where it gets important. I'm going to suggest that you number these as we go along. If you were with us when we did this page originally, you've got it numbered. And if you remember when we numbered it, I asked you to kind of just trust me that at some point down the line, these numbers will come into play and they'll make sense. Well, we have arrived because we're about to talk about them and have them make sense. So here's number one. We were having trouble with personal relationships. sounds like we're talking about the physical dimension, right? We're having difficulty with people around us. I'm critical of everybody. I'm sarcastic. I'm judgmental of everybody. I am disagreeable. You tell me something, I will automatically take the opposite point of view just to be contrary. So I was having trouble. You can't act like that and not have trouble with personal relationships. So the physical dimension, we have three dimensions of life: physical, spiritual, and mental. We've already been told when we overcome the spiritual malady, we straighten out mentally and physically. Well, when we go backwards, we go the same way. We, instead of going spiritual, mental, physical, first thing to go is spiritual, is physical. The first warning sign to me that I'm starting to come apart is I'm starting to have trouble with you. I'm starting to notice all of the things you're doing and not doing and criticizing. I'm having trouble with personal relationships, even if I'm just feeling it. So that's number one. Number two, we couldn't control our emotional natures. Number three, we were a prey to misery and depression. Number four, we couldn't make a living. And number five, we had a feeling of uselessness. Number 2 through 5, as far as I'm concerned, relate to the mental part of our malady. It refers to the difficulties we're having in our head, that we can't control our emotional natures. We're happy, we're sad, we're angry, we're mad, we're all over the place. Prey to misery and depression. Just want to stay in bed, pull the covers over my head, and just let the world go away. The whole world needs a vacation. Let them take it now and leave me the hell alone. We couldn't make a living. That doesn't mean I don't have a job. It just means I can't make a living. I can't hold on to that money. It has no value. It has no significance. I'm buying things just to feel better. I'm spending, I'm collecting. I'm not really making a living. I'm collecting money to use to buy other things that just don't satisfy me. Um, we had a feeling of uselessness. Number 6, we were full of fear. We were full of fear. 7, we were unhappy. 8, we couldn't be of real help to other people. And please underline this question. Too often we stop reading at this point of we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people, and we go on to something else. But let's not do that this time. Let's take a look at the question that's being posed here. And I've underlined this, and I've underlined it in red. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than ... And in those dots, write whatever the distraction of choice is. Maybe it's plopping down to catch up with Game of Thrones. There's the new season came out. There's second season of the Targaryens. Yeah, I watch it too. Catch up on anything on TV or radio or podcasts, whatever it is. I'm doing something to avoid doing the work I need to do. Wherever I am in the step process, if I'm supposed to be making a list of angers, I should be doing that. I shouldn't be just chilling in front of the TV, catching up on The Walking Dead. That's not what this is about. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than ... Now, Bill says whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight, because that's what interested him. But what I've got written down is after the ... I've written, or the distraction of my choice, whatever that distraction is. It could be sitting down on the computer and all the fun stuff you can have on the computer. Whatever it is, I'm not doing the work I need to do, which is why I always tell my people that you have to make a date with yourself. every day at a certain time, every day. The TV is off, the computer's off, the door is closed, everybody's out. And for 15 minutes, I'm going to work on whatever step it is I'm working on. Is that so difficult? 15 minutes? You'll see how fast that turns into an hour, 2 hours, but forget that. I don't want that to scare anybody. 15 minutes. Put it down in your agenda, in your calendar. It's got to be the same time every day. And it can't be, well, the last thing I do before I go to sleep, right after I brush my teeth or right before I brush my teeth. That's not an appointment. Make an appointment with yourself at 11 o'clock every night, no matter where I am, whether I've brushed my teeth or not, whether I've gotten into my jammies or not. I'm going to stop, I'm going to close up, and I'm going to work 15 minutes. Isn't it worth it? If your life is made up of the things we just read, isn't that more important than the rest of that dreck that we distract ourselves with? And of course, Bill gives us the answer. Like any time he poses a question, he gives us the answer. He doesn't even say, yes, it is. He says, of course it is. Like, what a silly question to even ask. Now, when I mentioned earlier on the right side of this paragraph to write symptoms of a spiritual malady, there are a few other ways to classify this if you want to write it down. Someone's asked me what dimensions of the 6, 7, and 8. It's the physical dimension. I'm sorry, it's the spiritual dimension. What am I talking about? The spiritual dimension. Okay. The physical dimension is development number 1. The mental dimension is 2 through 5. 6 through 8 is the spiritual dimension. And as I was saying, on the right side, we've already made note that it's the symptoms of a spiritual malady. But over the years, I've had members of the workshop who've come up with some other interesting references for this, and I'll pass it along. They've called it indications of unmanageability. I like that, because if spiritual malady means my life is unmanageable without alcohol, then that's what that means. That's indications of unmanageability. How about this one? Traits of untreated alcoholism. Makes sense. Traits of untreated alcoholism. They're all oh, and I don't know if I said it, but let me mention it again. Indications of unmanageability. I think I might have said that, but if I didn't, there's another one. Indications of unmanageability. So this is what life is like as we approach second step, as we approach that third step decision. This is what life is like without alcohol. And we take a look at, and why isn't it better? I stopped drinking. I'm not drugging anymore. My life's supposed to get better. Why isn't it? I want to talk to the man in charge. Something's not right here. I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get. Now let's go back. As I mentioned, where we started, we're going to go back to page 83. I'm sorry. Andy, could you put up, please, the 3 dimensions of life? I think that one's number 3. Good job. You're the best, Andy. By the time we get to page 83, we've done a lot of work. Our life has changed. As I said before, you can't do this and not have change. Well, And I also refer to the ninth step promises as observations. Well, what are those changes? We just went through what life is like before we did that work. Now here we are after step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. After that, about that much of the book, after that chunk of the book, we notice our life is different. And since there are 3 basic dimensions of life, let's divide it down into those 3. In the first 3 steps, we got right with God. We got healthy in the spiritual dimension. Remember, Bill tells us that when we get right spiritually, we then get right mentally and then physically. So it starts with the spiritual dimension. I get right. I get for me, what that looked like was I've got it very clear in my head what the order of things is, because I came in here as a number 2, thinking I'm a number 1. That when I was told to pray to God, I was also told to let him know the things that I need. And I had to learn the hard way that God isn't the least bit interested in what I need, what I want, rather. He's only interested in my needs, and he'll take care of those. He doesn't have any interest in what I want. And for 24 years in recovery, I started every day with what I thought was the third step prayer by saying, God, I'm turning my life and my will over to your care, which in itself is a mistake because it's not life and will, it's will and life. Thought comes first. I can't change my actions before I change my thinking that leads to the actions. But when I did that, I also asked God to help me with, and I had a list. These are the things we need to work on today, God. And at the end of the day, before I went to bed, I had my list out and I'm looking at it and not much has changed. But God, I'm a fair guy. I'll give you another chance. We'll try again tomorrow. Okay. So my thinking was the order of things was wrong. I thought I was here, basically that God was my errand boy. And God is not my errand boy. I'm here to do his bidding. How many different ways does he tell us that throughout the pages that we've just already read? It is our job to stay close to him and to do his bidding. Sorry, thought I just muted everyone or unmuted everyone. So I got right, getting back to this diagram, I got right in those first 3 dimensions. I got straight, I got healthy spiritually. And then I worked steps 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I got right in the mental dimension. I got my head screwed on right. And as a result of working the 8th and the ninth step, I got right with you. I got right with my fellow man. I made peace in the physical dimension. I was in harmony in that physical dimension. I was in harmony, perhaps for the first time in my life. I was healthy spiritually, mentally, and physically. And if I'm in harmony in those 3 basic dimensions, then I am walking in what Bill refers to as the 4th dimension of existence, which is the harmonious blend of all of the other 3. That's the 4th dimension. The harmonious blend. We have entered the world of the spirit. And we've done a lot of work to get here. Don't want to go back. So Bill is going to give us a roadmap of how to prevent going backwards. But if we got right in these basic dimensions and we look around us, here I am in the bus driving through the 4th dimension of life. I have entered the world of the spirit. I've gone out of Bronx, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Manhattan, Queens. Now I'm in the 4th dimension of existence. I know that would be 6 dimensions because there are 5 boroughs, but just hang with me. Just give me a break. Um, so, and if that's the case, I look out my window of the bus, and here's what I notice. Andy, you could take that down. We're on the bottom of page 83. If we are painstaking about this, I'm going to suggest you highlight in pink the entire paragraph through the next page. And as long as we've got our highlighter out, let's highlight the second paragraph in pink as well. These these extravagant promises. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay. And as I said, we're going to go through this a couple of different times. We're going through it now to give them numbers. We're going to number everything in this paragraph. So Bill says, if we are painstaking, well, painstaking just means meticulous, careful. If we are meticulous about this phase of our development, we're not going to talk about the phase yet. We'll get there. We'll be amazed before we're halfway through. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do here is maybe a little confusing, but it'll make sense before the meeting's out. I'm going to ask you to number these statements, but they're not going to be in order. And the first one we're numbering, which is number 7, is we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. Those 3 lines are number 7. Here's number 2. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. That is number 2. Next is number 8. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That is number 8. Once again, no matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That's number 8. Number 5, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. That's number 5. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Here's number 1. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Here's number 3. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. That's number 3. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Number 4, fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. That's number 4. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. Number 6, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. That is number 6. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Intuitively, incidentally, is doing something with little or no thought. It's doing something without conscious reasoning. Here's a good way to remember what intuitively means. Maybe it'll help you. The more I let go, the more I'll know. That's what intuitively means to me, is the more I let go, the more I'll know. Intuitively, something that's done without conscious reasoning. I'm letting go of that reasoning process and I'm just allowing it to happen. And the more I let go, the more I'll know. And I said we weren't going to dissect it yet, so I'm sorry. We'll get back to that in a minute. But that's the last one. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And I'll finish the paragraph, but then we're going to go back. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And we'll stop there on that. And let's go back to the beginning of this. And Andy, if you could give me, I think it's 615, number 1. You know, there was a time, not too many years ago, when I would show this, and most of the people had never seen it before, never heard of the comparison between the bedevilments and the promises. And it's a great, I don't know, show indication of how we have grown, because most of you are familiar with this material. And that's great. In a few short time span of a few years, we have come so far as a fellowship. We are so much more qualified to be sponsors. What a thing. But let's take a look at it. We said we've grown when we, as we approach step 1, step 2, we're having trouble with personal relationships. That's dealing with the physical dimension. So next to number 1 on the left, you may want to write physical dimension. And then we have number 2. We couldn't control our emotional natures. And then as we approach steps 10, 11, and 12, we will comprehend the word serenity and know peace. I skipped the first one by mistake, incidentally. We used to, as we approach step 2, have trouble with personal relationships. And now, as we approach steps 10, 11, and 12, we'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. That's in the physical dimension. 2, 3, 4, and 5, if you want to put a little bracket there, those are all the mental dimension, as I mentioned before. I thought I had one of these with that, but I don't. I'm going to have to add that next time we go through it. I apologize. But we're going to put a bracket on 2, 3, 4, and 5 and call that the mental dimension. And we're going to break it down as follows. Number 2, we couldn't control our emotional natures. As we headed into step 2 and then into 3 and so on, we couldn't control our emotional natures. But as a result of the work from page 52 to 82, we've done the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th step. What happens? We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. We were a prey to misery and depression before working the 3rd through the 8th step. But as a result of working those steps, look what happened. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Again, just think of these things on the right side as observations. I don't want to break the flow here, so I'll say what I'm thinking of for a moment. Number 4, we couldn't make a living. And as a result of working those steps, as we approach 10 through 12, fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. Number 5, we had a feeling of uselessness. And as a result of the work to this point, as we embark on the 10th, 11th, and 12th step, look what happens. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Things have changed. Now we're getting into the spiritual dimension, 6, 7, and 8. We were full of fear. And now, as we approach steps 10, 11, and 12, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We have replaced fear with faith. We're full of fear meant I've lost my faith. I intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me means I have replaced fear with courage. And by exercising God's will courageously through my self-will in accordance with God's wishes, I no longer have that feeling. We were unhappy. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness as we get to the 10th, 11th, and 12th step. In number 8, we couldn't seem to be a real help to other people. And as a result of the work we've done between 52 and 82, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. And best of all, most of all, we suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. We suddenly realize that what alcohol used to do for us, fellowship and the steps, have taken its place. Andy, let's go to the next page. I'm going to take a journey. We're going to go back in time. Going to go back in time to a period when alcohol was my friend. Alcohol served the purpose. Alcohol, drugs, cocaine, whatever floats your boat. We're going to read this again, but we're going to add a few words, and those words are going to refer to a time when I was younger, when alcohol and drugs were friends. This is the way alcohol used to make me feel. This is the way heroin, cocaine, all of these drugs made me feel before it turned against me. This is how it made me feel. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I knew a new freedom and a new happiness. Anyone identify with that? Hell yeah. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I did not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I would comprehend the word serenity and know peace. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, no matter how far down the scale I'd gone, I'd see how my experience could benefit others. You bet. I was the guy who was solving everybody's problems. Everybody's problems. You want to know? Come to me. I'll tell you how to solve. Take care of everything. Some people like to get in fights, and some people like to tell jokes, and some people do get dancing, and some people hit on members of the opposite sex, and some become authorities on everything. That's me. I'm the guy in the corner. Don't even have to pay me. I'm reading your tea leaves. I'll tell you how to solve all of life's problems. Okay. Where was I? Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity would disappear. Whenever I took a drink or a line or a hit, I'd lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. I love you, man. Oh, yeah. Whenever I took a drink or a line, self-pity would slip away. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, my whole attitude and outlook upon life would change. You bet it did. That's exactly why I did it. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, fear of people and of economic insecurity would leave me. I'm spending money I don't have, but it doesn't matter. Alcohol will solve the problem somehow down the line. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I would intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me. Like I said, I had the answer to everything, to everybody and everything. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, here's my favorite. I suddenly realized that alcohol was doing for me what I could not do for myself. I had so many spiritual experiences with chemicals, it was ridiculous. But think about this. Think about what we just read. No wonder, no wonder. You could take it down, Andy. No wonder we loved to drink. We loved to get high. Whenever you find something, anything that does that much for you, well, put it in my terms, that does that much for me, why wouldn't I become obsessed with doing it over and over and over again? Like those mice who would hit the button and get more cocaine. And eventually they didn't go do anything else. They didn't go get water. They didn't go get food. They just stayed there on that button, on that button, on that button. I don't care what the button is. The button could be alcohol. It could be cocaine for the rats. It could be Hostess Twinkies. Whatever it is that gives you that feeling, we are going to become obsessed with using it. But eventually it's going to turn. Eventually it turns on us. And in sobriety, we find that those first 9 steps of the program of action are doing exactly what the good things that alcohol used to do for us before it turned against us. So here's the good news. We don't have to drink anymore. We have found everything good that alcohol gave us through the first 9 steps. That's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. But unlike alcohol, these first 9 steps will never turn against me. I'll never get arrested because of the 9 steps. I'll never get divorced because of it. I'll never get fired because of it. I'll never get sick and throw up because of it. I may feel like it. Some of those amends and inventory, I may feel like barfing, but I don't. I don't. I have found something that relieves that restless, irritable, discontent feeling. And if I work those 9 steps every day in my life, I can continue that growth. As Bill has given us a prescription for continued growth in the 10th, 11th, and 12th step, which we're going to consider as spiritual growth steps, not maintenance. If you look up maintain in a dictionary, it's defined as to keep something the same. And I have worked too hard to get to where I am to just go backwards. And there's no such thing as staying in place, as maintaining. That violates the law of physics. Basic law of physics is everything is in a state of flux. It's always changing. It's progressing. It's regressing. It's moving forward. It's moving backwards. It never stays in place. It's an impossibility. So if I think I'm staying in place and I'm maintaining, I'm not. I'm going backwards. I'm going backwards. So let's go back to page 83. And let's go through this the way we ordinarily go through things, in the usual manner. Pick it apart, dissect it. So as I said, this paragraph 83 through the second paragraph on the next page on 84.1 is all highlighted in its entirety in pink. Now, again, I may have not been as clear as I like, but let me go back just a moment. When we take this paragraph that we're about to read out of the book and read it at the beginning of every meaning, it has a different connotation. It has a different inference. It has a different meaning than when we keep it in context in the book. I'm a bug about this. I know I've said it over and over the last few months to please keep things in context in this book. If we take it out of context, we could make it mean almost anything. Almost anything. We're going to see how we can play that game with page 96 shortly. But the fact of the matter is that when we read it at the beginning of meetings, it gives a different impression. When I heard it, when I first came in, and I hear you telling me about economic insecurity, you mean I put a buck in the basket and somehow my bills are going to get paid? Damn, here's $2. Take care of the next guys as well. Because that's the way I think. Nobody ever in my first 24 years around the room put together the fact that we read how it works and then we read, quote, the miracles, and never put the two together. I think we're doing newcomers a grave injustice. We're letting them know, we're giving them the map to freedom. And then we're telling them what it'll be like. But we never bothered to say, these things that we just told you about economic insecurity and comprehensive serenity and all that stuff, that in order to get that, you have to do the stuff we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. Someone's saying it's not $1 today, it's $3. Yeah, it's probably a lot more than that too. But the point is that it has a different meaning. When I take it out of context, it means something else. If I put it back in the book where it is, it tells me that these are observations of what life is like in the fourth dimension as a result of doing the work in how it works. We read that the last chapter. In many meetings, we read that at the beginning of the meeting, and then we read this thing at the end of the meeting. And I wish we would somehow point out, before we read these, quote, miracles on page 83, I'd like to point out that in order to get these things, and you can 100% get them, you remember the thing we read at the beginning of the meeting, how it works? That's how you get them. That's how you get them. You got to spell it out. So let's spell it out. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, what phase is that? We're in the amends phase. That's where we are on this page. We're ending our discussion on 8 and 9 and moving in to those spiritual maintenance steps. So when we say this phase of our development, we're talking about the amends phase, steps 8 and 9. And what about it? If we're painstaking, which means careful and meticulous, thorough and honest, let's remember those two words. That's what Bill told us back when we started the inventory. If we're thorough and honest, meaning We don't consciously leave anything out. So if I've done that, if I've been true to myself, and I have been thorough and honest, and I've been meticulous, and I've been careful, here's what happens. I'll be amazed before I'm halfway through. Now, being halfway through does not mean step 6, because that's half of the 12 steps. We're talking about this phase of our recovery, the 8th and 9th step. And he's telling us that before we're halfway through making our amends, shit happens. You are not going to believe it. You remember I said we made those lists of now, later, nevers, and that as we made the nows and we see the benefits and the freedom that comes from making those amends, those things we said we would never, ever do, that I said I'd give you $20 if you went ahead and did them, we start to do them. We start to do them, and we're not even halfway through our amends. Once we start to make the amends, and we realize the power and the freedom that comes from it, we just want to do more and more and more. My sponsor had to edit me, had to start taking stuff off my list because I was going amends happy. You know, you didn't do anything to harm that guy. You didn't do anything to harm that guy. Take it down. Take it down. We're going to know, and again, before I'm halfway through, we're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. Will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. And incidentally, a new freedom and a new happiness. I could take the word new out of there because I can't really say I had happiness in my life or freedom in my life until now. I truly experienced it, started to experience it at this point in my process. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Hell no. Hell no. Because cleaning up the past has brought me to this point where I have this freedom and I have this happiness. Here's a great one. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. Please underline comprehend and please underline know. It doesn't say that I will have serenity and peace all the time. Doesn't say that. It's like, I know Andy. I don't know. I think I understand Andy to some extent. But he's not with me 24/7. That's what we're talking about. We will experience something and know something that we've never had before. Serenity and peace. I didn't know serenity and I didn't know peace because I had no experience with it. I only knew the idea I formed about it. And now I finally experience it. I don't own it. I don't possess it. I experience it. And I never did before. I never did before. Continue. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of usefulness and self-pity will disappear. Please underline will disappear. And above it, I've put the word gradual. We're addicts and alcoholics, and we want not just instant gratification. We want constant gratification. Not just instant, but instant and constant gratification. I want that peace and I want that serenity all the time. And here it says, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. That disappear is a process. When something disappears, it's gradually going away. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will, please underline, slip away. Once again, gradual, it doesn't say it will vanish. Vanish would be like instantaneous. It's not what we're being told about here. That these things will disappear, that these things will slip away. The same way back in our inventory about fear, remember that we ask God to help us exercise courage, and at once we commence to outgrow fear. Gradual, not instantaneous. Here it gets a little bit more serious when it comes to the fear, because we've been starting it. We started that fear process a little while back. Our whole attitude and outlook on change, life will change. Fear of people. Please underline that first word. Maybe even circle it. And of economic insecurity will leave us. And I've underlined leave us. The most important word in that sentence is that word that we circled and underlined at the beginning, fear. It doesn't tell me that I'm going to be free of economic insecurity. When I heard that, I thought, that's great. I'm facing $150,000 in student debt of my son's that I have no way to pay. And now you're telling me that I put that buck in the basket and that bill's going to be paid too? That's why I'll put a second dollar in there. One could take care of my bills, the other one could take care of my son's student loans. But that's not what it says. It says that the fear of it will lose me. I will lose that fear. So that means when the phone rings and I see it's from the collection agency, I pick it up and I tell them what I told them last time. This is what I'm offering you. This is what I can pay. You can't accept it. Sooner or later, you'll hand it down to the next guy who might. But sooner or later, somebody's going to accept this. But I never ran away from it. That fear was gone. They weren't going to take my house and they weren't going to attach my wages. So I had no fear about that. And the first part of the sentence was a bitch for me. Pardon my language. Fear of people. Oh, that level of intimacy just always scared me. Before I went out to work, even in recovery, I would look out the window to make sure none of my neighbors were walking out to their car at the same time I was, because I did not have the comfort level of being able to say, "Hey, Louie, how you doing? How's the family?" That's all. I was terrified of people. I'd go into the grocery store and I'd see uh, Dell on the other end of the store, and I'd either go to another store and come back later, or I would keep an eye on where Dell is so I don't have to cross paths with him just to say, "How you doing, pal?" Fear of people. Oh, that was a tough one for me. But this tells me in the fourth dimension, I won't and don't have that anymore. Why? I will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me. Once again, intuitively is doing something without conscious reasoning, without conscious thought. So that means, and I just thought of this, I was at a meeting the other day, we were reading this section, and someone said that intuitively is defined as without conscious reasoning. And it occurred to me, if that's the case, then the more I let go of that conscious reasoning, the more I know. The more I let go of trying to control the outcome, the more I know. Boy, was that true for me. Was that a relief for me? We will suddenly realize, and above realize, I've written two words: real eyes. Because by this time, certainly I'm looking at things and I'm seeing the truth. The second step was about restoring me to sanity, which is the ability to recognize the truth in all situations. And now I suddenly realize that that I'm looking at things and seeing things with different eyes. Dell says sixth sense. Yeah, yeah. Remember when Bill opened that door and Eber was standing there? There was something about his eyes. Remember when Fitzmayo's wife showed up at the hospital the day after he had his spiritual experience? What did she say? She looked in his eyes and saw this time he meant it. There's something about the eyes. And I realize that I have the ability now to recognize the truth in all my affairs. That's what's so beautiful about that. That intuitively, the more I know, the more I let go, the more I will know. Continuing, we will we will suddenly realize that, and please underline this last part: God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. What an extraordinary, wonderful feeling that is. It's a great feeling. But remember, God will do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And next to it, I've written, but he will not do that which I can do for myself. In the 12 and 12, Bill tells me that God will not render me as white, clear as white as driven snow without my cooperation. If I want God to guide my path, I have to move my feet. I have work to do, and God's not going to do the work that I can do. In that seventh step, when we ask God to help us be the opposite of the defect that we're running smack into, my job is to identify what is the opposite of that defect. If I'm being judgmental, well, the opposite of that is humble. God, help me recognize my shortcomings, that I don't have the answers to everything, that it's not my job to correct these people all the time. That's my job. God's not going to do that for me. I've got to do that. And then he'll give me the strength I need to walk through it and exercise the asset, not the defect. So, what a wonderful feeling that is, to know that God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, just as long as I do what I can do. Remember a little while back on page 52, I believe it was, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us do and humbly rely upon him, does he match our calamity with serenity. I got to put it in to get something out. And let's finish this last paragraph. Are these extravagant promises? I think not. I had something I wanted to mention to you here. Are these extravagant promises? I had a note and I lost it. Okay, no worries. We'll come back. We think not. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly. Please underline that. Sometimes slowly. Please underline that. They will always, please underline always, materialize and circle the condition here if we work for them. Once again, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely upon him, does he match our calamity with serenity? If we work for them. And I don't want to go any further than that for right now. We'll pick that up for next week. Let me turn the recording off.